Here's a little something I like to call my incredibly delinquent Lectric XP 3.0 review, but it's important, so hang tight. Nope. Yep.
Dibs.
Well, it's been 1.5 years, and I'm just now getting around to doing a video. Just in time for it being outdated, kinda, because the new XP 4.0 is out. But that means the XP 3.0s and below models are still out there and available, especially in the used market. Not to mention that the XP 3.0s will be similar to some of their other current products. So stick with me for a few minutes to get an honest review of my experience. As mentioned, we've had these for about 1.5 years, and in that time, on this particular bike, I put on nearly 400 miles. This has given me enough time to really dig into what I like and what I don't like. Let's get to the nuts and bolts, and in the end, I'll give you my honest opinion if these things are really worth the price and hassle. But stay tuned because the conclusion may surprise you. What we have here is my Lectric 3.0 bike. It's got hydraulic disc brakes, gears, shocks, and as you can obviously see, it has a child passenger seat add-on. I also optioned in the long-range battery because I'm squatch-sized and I have to carry a juvenile as well. Okay, let's get to it. Things I have upgraded. I chose to option this with the rear seat because, well, little Squatch isn't old enough to ride his own e-bike yet in most states. This works great. Note this includes these handlebars here, but these compact folding foot pegs down here were something we had to come up with. Lectric's solution of just putting on their long pegs off the wheels causes the bike not to collapse enough to close underneath our tonneau cover. Link below for what pegs we use, but essentially we use the upper holes for mounting and then found some hard-ride ace that fit nicely. Note that we had to unbolt the rear wheel and lift it out of the way slightly to get the hardware into place. Also note that we chose grade 8 bolts because, well, I had a feeling that he'd end up standing on these every once in a while and I didn't want the bolts to bend. This bell, well, for obvious reasons. It can be loud and really helps notify pedestrians on the trail. This cell phone holder. This works great from Lectric, but honestly, I prefer the one on my mountain bike, so I'll consider swapping this out at some point. This 3D printed throttle thumb thing adapter-rooney. I really dislike the twist throttle. Additionally, I have one of these chargers from Luna with a barrel connector. This lets us charge the batteries to a predetermined selection, such as 80% for battery storage between rides. I can also select the amps it's pumping out here, but typically never go over 2. It's very well built and takes the guesswork out of where your voltage really is, and, as mentioned, ensures you can stop charging at 80% when it's time to stow the battery for a while. Speaking of things you can upgrade, have you noticed how many of the cold synthetic AI voiceovers are spreading through YouTube and other social media? Well, there's a cure for that. Bring back that warm, human touch to your videos and advertisements with Ironroot Voiceover. Link in the description below. Now on with things that I have broke. A flat rear tire. It developed a large leak while we were on Myrtle Beach, and to tell you the truth, I don't even remember what the shop said punctured the tube when they put a new tube in. Maybe it was a swordfish nose or something, but what I do know is that the factory-installed slime didn't help in this particular case. Who knows? Maybe it saved me from other mid-trail disasters, but I found a scenario where it just didn't seem to work, it seems. I think that's the only thing I broke, but let's talk about the damage. Things I have damaged. When folding the bike, there is contact with the foot peg. My problem, not Lectric's. As you can see, it has taken the paint off and now the stock tube started to rust. You can see a little bit of rust here and there. I think that's because I've had it on the beaches for a few rides. Even though I rinse it off immediately after bringing it back, you can't just always prevent this from happening when taking that risk. This seat bolt at the front fell off. I put a new nut on, but somehow the bolt up top within the seat has broken loose and I can no longer tighten this down. Oh well, I'm not fond of the seat anyways, so out it'll go. Looking at the rear tire, you can really see that the weight of a Squatch and his juvenile has on wear. This center is almost completely gone, so we'll find something else to put on this that's a bit more sturdy. When we're RVing, this is how we stow them, safely underneath our tonneau cover. Since we have a full-size truck with a long bed, all 3 bikes stow in here safely and out of sight. I do want to mention that, yes, it is a pain in the rear loading and unloading these as they can be very heavy, especially the XP 3.0. So when we're camping, we just leave them out in front of our RV under a cover. We chain them all together with a couple of these kryptonite locks and then chain them to the RV. Easy, quick, and ready to go for the next ride. When we're home and we want to ride locally, we just put them in these tubs and throw them in our adventure trailer. Way more easy to load and unload. There are other ways to transport these, like with the hitch carriers, but those are expensive and we usually need to transfer 3 or 4 of these at a time, so that other hitch rack solution is just not for us at this time. Things I like. The price point, of course. I paid right around $11.50 for this bike, which is really not bad at all. The compactness and storage. It's foldable, so it can shrink down to a reasonable size. And the battery life isn't too bad either. We can typically go about 22 miles or so before we really start to worry. I appreciate that the batteries are relatively easy to remove and install. The parts, they just seem durable. There's minimal plastic on here, and most things are some sort of metal. I enjoy the fact that I have hydraulic brakes. The bike stops really well for being so heavy. The shifting isn't too bad either. Mine needed adjustments since it was new, but once I had this dialed in, it's been working okay. It still has issues between certain gears, but it's something that I'm tolerating for now. And it just fits me. I'm pretty tall, and this bike is able to accommodate that with the adjustable seat and adjustable handlebars. The final comment I want to make in this section is that it just simply worked. When I got it, I just finished assembling it, and then I was able to take off riding that very same day. Things I don't like. The cadence sensor. This means that the power is either fully activated or it's not. So to get going without the throttle is extremely difficult, making the throttle assist absolutely necessary to get going fast from a stop, especially when you have a passenger. This also means that the engagement of the power to the wheel can be very jerky. It takes some time to get used to. Note that the XP 4.0 has a torque sensor, so this point, and a couple of the other ones we'll get to in a minute, may be negated. Or there will just be new problems altogether with that release. Who knows? Sometimes when I'm trying to cross a street or need to make a sudden acceleration from a stop, I hit the throttle and the bike will, strangely, start to accelerate, then completely cut off, like it's confused. For example, it's very common that when I need to cross a street and move away from traffic from a dead stop, I'll hit the throttle, get a boost of power, and I start to pedal, and then BAM! My assist completely cuts out. This is dangerous, annoying, and extremely frustrating. It kind of makes you look like a fool because you're crossing a busy intersection where the cars are reluctantly waiting for you, but looking like a complete idiot, you suddenly can't move. It takes a good 2 or more seconds before the power will kick back on, even though you have the throttle pegged. My solution? Well, now we don't pedal at all during these scenarios and just use the throttle. Once we're across the street, we'll start using the pedals again. We can't match speeds between our XP 3.0 and our XP Lights. My level 1 on my XP is more like level 0.5 on the XP Lite, if there was ever such a level. Then, if I switch to level 2, the bike will want to take off and move around 14 to 16 miles per hour or so, which is equivalent to level 3 or 4 on the XP Lite. As a result, both of us, or all of us if all three of us are riding, constantly have to keep our thumb on the PAS switch, adjusting the levels so we can keep pace with each other. This throttle only gets the bike moving or keeps it moving if you stop pedaling. Those of us that have ridden e-bikes for a while can see a problem with this. For example, if I want extra boost going up a hill, I can't just turn the throttle slightly and get a boost. Instead, I have to change my PAS settings again, get that jerky boost of power, and then quickly change the PAS back down again. Why not just have the throttle deliver that extra boost from just twisting it? This would also make it much easier to match a riding partner's speed, or say just quickly bump up a small incline. The throttle feels more like an on and off switch. I think there's a small throw where it is modulating the amps of the motor, but if so, it's so sensitive it's not even worth trying to find that balance point. On the XP 3.0, there needs to be a level between 1 and 2. Level 2 is more like level 3. I mean, the difference between 1 and 2 is staggering. At level 1, it's barely crawling the bike, and at level 2, well, you're off to the races. It whips you along at 15 or so miles per hour. This leaves your riding buddies on the XP Lights in the dust, as they'll have to be fidgeting with their PAS settings to catch up to you. My wife constantly reports that she has to toggle between level 3 and 4 while I'm cruising along on level 2. My last concern, for this video anyways, is that there are constant noises everywhere on this bike. The fenders make noises as they rattle around, the springs on the upgraded seat is constantly squeaking when you pedal, the brake pads both front and back are making rubbing or other spaceship sounds, and there's this other unknown sounds coming from, other places I haven't even tracked down yet. I'll very commonly tap the brakes to get them to quiet down while I'm cruising. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't and makes them louder, not to mention that it cuts power momentarily when I do that. So even after tightening and aligning things as best as I could, and even taking it to a service department for work, I just kind of gave up. Additionally, my wife's XP Lite usually gives a high-pitched, kind of like an old radar-type squeak, and my daughter's XP Lite very commonly makes this grinding sound. I can't track down either noises definitively besides knowing that the problem is either a rear hub on one and possibly a rotor on the other. I only take all these in for service soon, which will probably get kind of pricey. Now, looking back, the complaint section was kind of long, so you might think that I really don't like these very much. However, that couldn't be further from the truth. I tend to have high expectations because, well, I'm an engineer. I'm always looking for or expecting perfection. But these bikes aren't perfect, which should be obvious from the price we paid for them. For well under $3,000, we bought ourselves hundreds, and soon thousands, of miles of countless hours of exploration fun. Think of these things as enablers. There are so many adventures we've had on our e-bikes, from riding across the Keys and other cool trails in Florida, breathtaking trails in Washington and Oregon, or the iconic Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. So yeah, we're very happy with our purchase. If you're on the fence about getting one of these, stop worrying about about it and just go get one, or the XP 4.0. They're out now too and have addressed some of these issues I've referred to above. Just deal with the issues, but have fun knowing that you're doing something you couldn't do without it. Lectric is not sponsoring this video, so go get these or a different, hopefully reputable brand. I bought these because I trust the company is manufacturing a high-quality battery. I don't want my batteries to spontaneously combust if I was charging them from some other kind of generic brand. But meanwhile, your adventure awaits, so go get after it. If you're new around here, welcome. We're glad you found us. We do all sorts of things on this channel, such as reviews like this, fun projects for the average Joe, and occasionally some of our roots back to exploration videos. Click here to see what's next. As always, thank you for watching, my fellow Squatchologists, and we'll see you next time.